Hello everyone. I'm going to take you through how to use an adjustable hemmer. Now the adjustable hemmer is the most common attachment, I think, out of all the Singer attachments. You can find these on selling sites. They're very, very cheap. But if, like me, you've bought a few vintage machines over the years, you will always have one or maybe 5 of these sitting around collecting dust and rust. It can be quite a tricky attachment to bond with. It's certainly not my favourite attachment, but what it produces is actually very beautiful. So I'm going to take you through it, show you how to attach it to your machine, and then we will make some hems. Obviously, you have a nice big knob there. Most knobs, if you've not used your adjustable hemmer, it will be very stiff. But it's also got a locking mechanism, because if I turn it on its side and tighten it up, yep, nice and locked. If I loosen it and I keep loosening it, it will lock again. And that's just to stop the screw from accidentally falling out of the attachment. You might have in your box of attachments just this section because someone took the bolt off. Or you might just have this section thinking, well, what does that belong to? It belongs to this. So as you can obviously see, this gauge can slide back and forth. And it has a little arm here to direct you to different numbers. So these numbers, if I turn it in the light, start at number 1 and finish at number 8. These are 1/8 of an inch. So you can create a hem that's only 1/8 width, all the way up to 8/8, which is an inch. The adjustable hemmer is also designed to flip back. Now yours might be a bit stiff, but it will move. A bit of persuasion, it will move out the way. You can then create a hem a lot wider than 1 inch, but why would you want to create a hem that thick or that wide? But you can do it. I'm not going to go through that with you today, but I am going to show you how you can create different hem widths. The other thing about this, and it's very similar if you've watched my video on the narrow hemmer. Let me just get my narrow hemmer. So this is my narrow hemmer. And if I turn it upside down, it has a coil here at the back, and that encourages the fabric to curl round on itself as it's feeding through. Show you that again. Now if I flip this fella upside down, it has a very similar coil, and it's doing the same thing. It's going to feed that fabric round back on itself by about, I don't know, that 1/8, maybe 1/2 an 8 thing. It will basically curl the fabric under a little bit to create your hem, because it's going to stitch it at the same time. Now normally when you see this, you will pick it up and you hold it at this angle, but actually based on how you attach it to the machine, the correct angle is at this angle. Now you can just about see at the end of my finger the coil. So let me flip that back under. There's your coil. So the coil is there right in line with the needle, where the needle goes in, and that's where it's creating the stitch. So your hem can be anything from that coil all the way down to the end of this gap here, which is your 1 inch. Or if I move that in, you can see that there is a guide. Let me flip that over. There's your guide, and that's going to guide the fabric in. So it's actually held at this angle, and the fabric is fed through at this angle. If I get my scary pointy thing, your fabric is going in at this angle, straight through the needle, and spits it out the back. So let's have a go at this. So obviously it's a very simple attachment to set up ready. Obviously it will flick out. What we're going to do initially, let's start it there, which is 4/8 of an inch. What is half an inch? So let's just tighten that up. Ready? So that's not going to move. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch hem. Now, like other attachments that you'll know, some attachments have got just a hole. Other attachments, for example, our narrow hemmer has a slot, which means the thread can just feed into that slot. With any attachment that has a hole, it's always just good practice to get your top thread. I will change the camera angle in a minute. Get your top thread and just thread it through the attachment before, where is it? Before you fit it to your machine. Let's get that threaded through enough. Okay, so my top thread is already threaded through. So let's go ahead now and fit it to the machine. So for this video, I am using a featherweight because they're only little, and now it's actually got a little bit more clearance. Now, if you hear a squeaky noise, that is not the featherweight. That is just the chair I'm sitting on. It's got a creak. I think it needs some sewing machine oil in it. Okay, let's have a look. So what? Oh, I'm so silly. Sorry about that. Hang on. You don't know how to put the fabric in yet. So let me show you. Right. The fabric, if I tilt it, there's the channel for the fabric. So the fabric is going to go on top here. So it feeds in this way. And then if you see at that angle, it will channel all the way through and come out the bottom here. Sorry, I should have said that at the beginning. So let's just thread us up and I really should wear glasses. Come on, little guy. I don't want to lick the end of the thread, I might have to. Problem is it's a... There you go, I licked it. Yeah. Oh, I always fail on camera. Okay, so let's get it threaded like a failure. In we go. Right, we are threaded up. My thread just broke. Ah! Okay, I'm going to pause the video and like thread up properly. Hang on. Okay, I've threaded it now. I haven't learned how to edit videos, so I do my videos all in one hit. So a bit like old school gaming. If I die on my video, I have to start from the beginning again. I don't want to do that. I don't get a checkpoint life. Okay, our adjustable hemmer is now set up, and I've got it set up to do a 4/8 of an inch, which is half an inch. What we're going to do is grab some fabric, and you're going to feed the fabric through. Now, I've found two different ways of doing this. You could, obviously there's not much clearance, but you could start to send that fabric through, and if you're nice to it, it will start to feed out the back. Okay, and it's all a bit funky and buckled, but that's okay, because even on old instruction manuals, what it says is to at least get it under, and then see what I'm doing? I'm grabbing it and curling it, and you start to feed it just back and forth. Watch out for your threads. But if you just feed it back and forth, it will start to slot in. Now, very similar to the narrow hemmer. On my narrow hemmer video, I kept calling it the adjustable hemmer, and I'm going to call this one narrow hemmer. So by feeding it back and forth, you start to feel the fabric. So the most important thing that I'm looking at is that my fabric is reaching this edge, but also is curling round. I'm not worrying about this because this is just a gauge. The most important thing is this edge, because this is the edge that's going to curl over. If the fabric, say, was about there and we've got a gap, it's not going to curl. So we have to make sure it's at as close to or button up to this piece. Now, I haven't dropped the presser foot, which means I can physically slide this fabric back and forth until I've got it set up. What I'm also doing, and what I'm about to do, is now that I've got it edged up here, there's still some fabric hanging out the back here, so I'm gonna now pull it, just watch out for your threads, pull it back, because obviously I want my hem to start at the edge. So I'm just gonna nudge it back and go, yep, I'm happy with that. And let's see, there. Sorry, there you go, you're at a better angle now. Similar to the narrow hemmer, I'm going to be holding the fabric. Now, with the narrow hemmer, I was putting my fingernail directly on the bed of the machine. I don't have to with this because, you know, I'm doing a 1/2 inch hem, so it's not teeny tiny. I can grab it quite well like this. I'm going to turn the angle a little bit. So I'm kind of holding at that angle. I'm going to pay attention to make sure that the fabric is butted up to here, this angle. Don't worry about this. You want to make sure your fabric is at that angle. So I've got enough thread pulled out the back. And I read recently that when your threads are at the back, they shouldn't be directly behind. They should actually be slightly to the right. It stops bird nesting starting up. Okay, so we've got it set up. It's going to do a 1/2 inch hem. So my presser foot is down and it's going to start feeding through. Now all I'm going to do is just guide that fabric. Now you can see I'm not holding it straight. I'm holding it at a slight angle towards the left, just to ensure that that's going to catch properly. And obviously you can stop and adjust. So you can see mine started to roll a little bit then, so let's make sure that that's put back. Slightly caught, but that's okay. Now mine's trying to feed away, unfortunately, but I think that's more to do with the camera angle. But it's still working. Let's give it a curl. I'm going to do a few of these so you'll see. So I think this one just went a bit pants actually. Let's just keep it out. Yeah, that went horrible, didn't it? I can always show you the ones I did earlier. No, I'm not, but let's do it together. Oh, actually, that's not too bad. So what that's done has created a nice, so you can see where I didn't start it right at the very end, but if you look here, that's created a very beautiful, cute rolled hem. And so obviously this is the wrong side of the fabric. If I turn it over, it's a very nice, neat hem. So let's change the width of the fabric. So you know that it's got to fold under, but another hack that I found is to loosen this. Okay, sorry, I knocked the camera then. So I'm going to send that just directly under. Where's my threads gone? Let's get my threads out of the way. So I'm going to, yeah, I have got it under. So I'm just pushing that under the fabric under there, but I haven't actually hooked it at all, and this is hanging out loose at the moment. What I found, if you put it on, say, the 1/8 the 1 inch setting, you can manipulate your fabric over. Obviously that's quite a lot at the moment. You can just manipulate the fabric over round and then go, right, what setting do I want it on? Now I'm going to adjust it back, and you can see it's dragging the fabric. I'm going to have it on a 3/8 now, so I'm going to make it narrower than I had before. But my fabric is already geared up, ready, after a bit of manhandling. Oh, it's going wrong. This is why I hate this attachment so much. Start that again. I really need to learn how to edit videos. Alright. Loosen this. Maybe my other hack doesn't actually work. Maybe. It's just, I don't even know what I've set it on, but I've set it on something. Let's send it through again. Now, do you know what? That other hack doesn't even work. It worked for me before off camera, but obviously not on camera. So do it this way and fold it under. Ah, this is good to know. Sometimes when you fold, it cheekily peeks out. So if you've got your scary pointy thing, you can just tuck that just to make sure that that's not actually going to go under, and then you can feed. As you can see, it creates beautiful hems, but it's actually really tricky. So the fact that you can see me struggling with it, and although I've used this quite a number of times, it's still a little bit naughty. Oh, look, I ruined it. This video is not going well. This is going to turn into like, a 4-hour video until I get this right. No, I will persist. Bloody thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Okay, let's just shove that under. No. All right. I'm going to loosen that completely this time. Let's do what I did last time. All right, send it under. It's loose at the moment, so we can hook it. See, look. There you go. Whichever way you can get the fabric under, there is no right or wrong way. It's whatever works for you. So I have managed to hook it under, but I have not adjusted this. I have not tightened that up. So as I mentioned before, I want to do a 3/8 of a hem. And let's get it lined up. So 3/8 of a hem looks like that. So I'm pulling it back to about there. Make sure my threads aren't going to jam up. Press it down and there you go. Once the fabric is under, it's creating a beautiful hem. Now, if I knew how to edit videos, I would have cut all of that out, but this can just be my blooper video if I had one. But you can see how it's feeding through and out the other end. Get my scissors. So that's created a narrower hem than the one I did before. Oh look, it looks near enough. Exactly the same actually. Maybe I did have it on before. Anyway, right, so first part of this video, apart from my bloopers, you get to see how it's being attached. And I'm using scrap fabric, so there are marks on this, but you can see how pretty that hem is. Now, the good thing about adjustable hemmer, a good thing, it is actually a good attachment. I haven't quite bonded enough with it as I have with the other attachments, but it's still quite lovely. But with an adjustable hemmer, you can sew thicker fabrics through compared to our little fella here, our narrow hemmer, which is, you know, there's not much that you can do in terms, let me zoom that back, there's not much fabric clearance with this little fella, but with the adjustable hemmer you can. So what I've got is 2 pieces of fabric that I've stitched together. So when I send this through the adjustable hemmer, it will go from single fabric to 3 layers, because my seam, I've pressed this side. Okay, so it's going to roll it under, so it's going to roll under 3 pieces of fabric here, and then it drops down back to 2 again. But the hemmer, as you can see, there's enough clearance for a lot more fabric to go through. So what we're going to do, I'm going to change that back to, what are we on? Let's go to 5/8. And let's just tighten that up. So I'm going to be starting with black fabric all the way along, and then it's going to turn to white fabric. So what I'm going to do is fold that. As I say, I'm not going to teach the right technique because you can see I'm failing at this technique. And dropped my pokey thing. Oh. Okay, try again. Just in case it gets caught under. Feed the little fella through. Now see that there was no faffing there. It worked quite well. Oh. Okay. There you go. In an edited video, I would say, look, once it's fed through, if you just push that back and forth, it will slowly, the seam itself will slowly fit into its right depthness. But this is becoming the adjustable hemmer blooper video. Okay, so I've got that set up, and I've got that rigged up, just getting it ready. Drop my presser foot, make sure my seams are slowly to the right. So now we are going to thread, we are going to sew. It's a 5/8 seam allowance, which I believe is 5/8, I think is a centimetre, or 5/8 I think is what a normal garment hem would be. I don't know. Anyway, we are going to go from doing, got it set up, we're going to go from one piece of fabric to another colour on a hem, and it will reach a point where you'll see the seam of the other fabric coming through. But let's start it off because we still need to guide it, and I'm still paying attention to this edge. And that's feeding through quite nicely. I know it's black fabric on a black sewing machine. Now I'm reaching the 3 layers, and as long as I'm careful, that will feed through. That's going to go through 3 layers of fabric because it includes the seam. Oh, I've got a bit of bucklage starting to happen there. And that's just where, I think it's because I'm using scrap fabric and the fabric is slightly on the bias. But it's still working. Let's just make sure that that's okay. So once you've got your fabric set up on this attachment, it works relatively well. You know, it's creating a hem of your choice of depthness, and it does a very neat hem. So let's have a look. So that's what it looks just on the white cotton. Let me turn that back a bit so it's in focus. So that's what it looks on the right side. This is on the wrong side. And then it comes across. It's then going through lots of seams, and it handled that without, even on the featherweight, it handled that without coughing or spluttering at all. So you can see that's worked really well. And then that's carrying on onto the black fabric again on that side. So if I put that down, you know, if you've got a garment that's got seams in it, you know that you can create a hem on the adjustable hemmer, and you know with confidence that that will go through the fabric and fold that seam on both sides. You know, create a nice hem on multiple layers of fabric. You would not be able to do that on a hemmer because just of the way this has been designed. Sorry, let's get that in focus for you. The way this has been designed, this is for very thin fabrics or just one layer of fabric. This little fella though, yeah, I'm sure will chomp through even more seam layers, but you can see that that works. And because it works, it will work on a much narrower adjustable hem, or obviously on a wider hem as well. That's pretty much it for this attachment. It is awkward. It is, you know, there's, you know, I recommend you watch a few YouTube videos. Different people have developed different techniques, but it also depends on what machine you're using as well. I chose to use the featherweight, my featherweight for this video, because I know that the clearance underneath this attachment when I drop the feed dogs is a little bit more than my 99K, which I do some of my videos with. And even so, it's just a little bit fiddly. Now, if I let me get another piece of fabric just to, I've got one scrap. Practice with scraps. It's always good. You're always going to have, if you're making quilts or you're making any sort of garment, you're always going to have scraps left over. Scraps are really good to help practice with your attachments. So just to recap, let's hope there's no bloopers now. There's two ways that you can thread your fabric through. You can either pre-fold your hem and tuck that through, and if you keep it slightly away from that, it won't encourage a curl, but as you can see, that's going to start tucking under. So if you've pre-folded your fabric, just be aware that that is going to kick out, and then you can push that through. The other option is to send the fabric from the right under first. Oops, it's good if you loosen this, because this will adjust, this will move out the way a bit more. If you do that, get it under the machine and then curl and start to curl so that it catches. I know that it's moving, but catch it. Then once it's caught, then you can go, what size seat hem do I want? I'm going to move it to that one. Because the fabric's already under, you can just give it some wigglings, feed it back so that you know that's where you're going to start. Have a practice with what works for you, and you know you're going to develop your own technique. As I say, I've seen lots of different suggestions for different types, so it's what you're comfortable with and what works for you. But these are the two that I find work for me. Obviously this one works by sliding the fabric under and then curling it. As soon as you tighten this little bar here presses down, obviously because it's being tightened to the rest of the attachment. But when you adjust it, can you see that move then? Let me tighten it back down. So when it's tight, that drops down quite low. When I untighten it or loosen it, that will move. So that will give you a bit more clearance when you're sending fabric over. Whichever way you do it, as long as you've got your fabric set up and as long as you're paying attention to this edge, not this, because it's going to curl anyway, But as long as you're paying attention, sorry, I dropped the camera. As long as you're paying attention to this side, when your fabric starts to stitch through, and whichever way you decide to hold it, I haven't actually worked out the best way to hold the fabric yet, as long as I'm holding it at the right angle and I'm paying attention to the fabric on this side, making sure that it doesn't start to move away, because that's the side of the curl. Let's belt that through, and snippy. There you go. So what it produces is very beautiful. It's getting to that point. It's getting the fabric threaded through enough to create said beautiful hemi seam thingy. And if I show you here, can I show you here? Hang on, let me do a cross section. I'm just snipping the fabric. If I do a cross section now and get this into focus, you can see it's only rolled in. Oh, hang on, my camera's not liking that at all. Right, it's only rolled in a tiny amount, and that tiny amount is just this tiny little curl. Let's get this off. It's only this tiny little curl of this metal curl that curls a tiny bit of fabric over. So that's all it's doing, but you'd be hard pushed to try and do that manually, even with iron it down. You're naturally going to have a bigger hem folded over, or you're going to understitch to get that, or edge stitch to get that to work right. So it's lovely. It produces a lovely hem, and it can, go through thicker fabrics, so you can hem thicker garments. It's just a bit on the fiddly side to get it set up ready. But I hope it helps, and I hope that you can see now how that works, even though it's difficult to put it on, but once it's on, it will work lovely. Okay, bye-bye.